to How to Make Films and Influence People.
Hey everybody, and welcome to How to Make Films and Influence People with Peter and Andrew, where we talk about our own approach to screenwriting and filmmaking, discuss great works of cinema, and blasphemously imagine how they could be remade. But this episode, we're actually doing something a little bit different. We are talking about our 5 top films set in Europe. That's a little break from our normal routine, but we hope you like it. First of all, I'm Peter, successful filmmaker, film professor, and screenwriter. This is Andrew.
Filmmaker, screenwriter, but not a European king by choice.
I'm not sure that's how the monarchy works, but I'll give you that one. This episode, as we sometimes do, we're not going to be following exactly our normal format, but we're instead going to spend a little time talking about just 5 films that stand out to each of us. There might be overlap, there might not be. And exactly how we define this, I think, has been up to each of us. So it's a little bit of a question, because I'll let you listeners in on a secret. There have been a lot of movies set in Europe. Like most of the movies made in Europe by Europeans are set in Europe. But I think this question, top 5 films set in Europe, something that we've had a little fun with thinking about. We've both spent a fair amount of time in Europe. And I don't know how that's influencing your take on these films, but that's something I thought about my own European experiences.
Yeah, I would say some of these definitely are because I've lived in Europe. So no, we didn't meet in Europe, but we did. I would say our friendship started in Europe.
I would say that's right. Yep. Almost ended. No, but it's kept.
But then it came back. So
It came back. So, Europe, not the death of every friendship, despite what you've heard.
It's a good place to visit. And so that's what I think. So when I was thinking about this, I'm thinking of when I think of Europe, it's such a fun place to travel, such a fun place to walk around. And I think films that do Europe well have these characters kind of wander through cities, because I think that's what Europe has to offer. It's not a place where you want to drive a car around. It's a place where you're taking a train or you're getting off and you're just walking. And so my first movie I had here was Midnight in Paris, which is, I think, is a really clever movie, really interesting story. But it takes place in Paris, and it really is, you are just in Paris walking around the whole time. And one of the kind of twists or unique gimmick of this film is that it's Paris modern day, and it's also Paris in like the 1920s, I think. And then it even goes further back. There's a street that you can walk down and you travel through time. And so you get to see Paris in a different time period with different people. And it's Owen Wilson. So there's a good amount of comedy, or at least comedy played for a pretty, I wouldn't say it's a comedy story, but there's comedic elements to it that he plays it very light and loose. And there's a romance to it, and he's a writer. And so you meet all these famous writers from the 20s in Paris, which is fun to do. And there's this theme of nostalgia. And I think this is one of the films I haven't seen a lot of Woody Allen films, but one of the films that I think his theme really works in this movie. By the end of it, you feel like, yeah, the whole story, the whole theme of it comes to a good conclusion and all makes sense. And I really liked it. I thought it was a fun one.
I have seen it like when it first came out, so I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember thinking it was fun.
Yeah,
I think that's a good reflection on Europe. So as I was thinking about top films set in Europe, I was primarily thinking about American films that were going to Europe. And so then not thinking about all the great European films that are there, but thinking about Americans going to Europe. My first one that I'll say is Eurotrip, which is a fun film about young American students going to Europe, traveling around. And I think it really plays with the idea both of dumb Americans not having any idea how Europe works, but also making fun of Europe. And it's a lighthearted, fun film. I think they shot it all in Prague. So like wherever they are in Europe, it's all in Prague. And when they start the movie in America, it's also in Prague. So it's interesting in that regard. There's a cameo from Matt Damon, who plays the lead singer of a band. Basically, the idea of the film is that one one the main character is like I think is graduating high school, and he finds out that his girlfriend has been cheating on him, and so he goes to Europe to connect with his German pen pal, and who he finds out is an attractive woman after thinking that she was a man, and so he thought he was writing to one person. He finds out this is sort of the reverse catfish, where he finds out he's actually been writing to an attractive woman. So now he goes to Europe to try to meet up with her, and he goes with his friends, and they have some shenanigans along the way, and it's very fun. I will just add, I don't know that anybody talks about this, but back in the day when people watched DVD audio commentaries,
Hmm.
there I was a big fan of audio commentaries. They're still there. You can listen to them. I don't know that there's a great way to listen to them just digitally, but on DVDs, on the Eurotrip DVD commentary, the director and writers of the film, I think there were three people doing it together, and they had to flip a coin to say who officially got credit as the director. But they're talking about the film, and they're drinking while they do it. And halfway through the commentary, the director of the film has to call his girlfriend to come pick him up because he's too drunk to drive. And I, I just think
That's on the commentary.
it's on the audio commentary, and I just think it's a really, like, they order pizza in the middle of the audio commentary. He calls his girlfriend to come pick him up, and we hear the whole conversation on the commentary. It's a it's fun for that reason alone. But so that would be Eurotrip, my number 5 choice there.
That's a good comedy that takes place in Europe. There's not a lot of those, I don't think, of comedies there. My next one is going to take a hard turn from there, and we're going to go with Midsommar, which I this is I think you could call it a horror. It is very dark. Even though, so I think the cool thing about this taking place in Europe is there's this sense, or there's this idea of like there's these weird European cultures, and people have lived in Europe for so long, thousands and thousands of years, and there's these traditions that have just come across through time. And this movie really plays into that idea of like there's this weird group in Sweden, and they have these crazy traditions, and it's kind of like a cult, but it's all white people, but they play on that idea of what this could be, and it really kind of goes off the deep end there of just all the crazy stuff that happens. And I think it's more of a showing the psychological state of the main woman kind of being played outwardly. I think there's a lot of fun. Like, I think it's really interesting how they play with those two ideas, and it all takes place in broad daylight as well, which is very interesting for a horror movie, especially. So I think this one I love the movie. I thought it was very well done. I think the way that it's all played out works really well, and it has these like Swedish cult ancient traditions to it. That's also really fun twist to this story.
Yeah, and I that's a great choice. I think your point about the white people is an interesting one, just because I think so often those kind of films like sort of go to like a foreign other group, and it's like they're so different, and like it feels a little bit more exploitative maybe, or it feels a little bit more like we're saying that this group of people is bizarre and weird. And it's like in Midsommar, it's the you can't make that conclusion at all.
No, they could all pass for Americans. Nothing really stands out, but yet it's this crazy cult. So
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. All right. Well, I'm going to go with you said not too many comedies. My list is pretty comedy heavy, so I'm coming at you. But
I was thinking,
National Lampoon's European Vacation, which
another European Vacation.
this
I like
is
yeah.
I just think that was such a classic. I went to Germany on a 2-week trip in high school that changed my life, really. I mean, it was just the most amazing experience. And it was just a weird, like, 2 weeks of, partially going to school in a German school and then traveling around and seeing things with a group from my high school. But my wife went on that trip. We weren't married at the time, but we then got married 20 years later. But or I don't know, 10 however many years later it was. But it was a great trip. And National Lampoon's European Vacation was the film that was my only context for travel to Europe before I went on that trip. And it was just this idea of you're going to travel around. everything is going to fall apart. It's all these different. You're going to knock over Stonehenge. You're going to be going to all these different places, and I just think Chevy Chase. I have never met the man. I've heard that he's a very difficult person to work with, but when he is firing on all cylinders, he is just funny in a way that I don't think anybody else really is.
I love this take of, I was thinking of Europe. I didn't think of any comedies. And then here you are. You're just like, maybe this is like how we view Europe. Just personally, I don't know. But
It's
that's
a great counterpoint. But I've got some diversity in my list. But all right, what's your next one?
One that I grew up watching, Sound of Music. This is a classic film. I feel like most people have heard of this one. I grew up watching this as a kid. My family wasn't really big into movies. My parents would watch a ton of movies, but for some reason they loved this one. My mom and my dad both, and we would watch this at least once a year, maybe more. It would come on TV. And I think it's a great story. I think the music is incredible. The acting, I think this really holds up as one of the great movies that's ever been made. And I still love it to this day. And it's just such a fun trip of Europe. You are in like World War II era Europe, but it's still really light and happy. There are some dark elements to it, but you get to like travel throughout and just see the fun parts of Europe and the singing and the dancing and a little bit of a culture, but definitely from an American perspective. So it's a lot more palatable because it's obvious Americans made this. Nobody in Germany or Austria know what this movie is. It's very much American movie, but I think it's a great one that holds up.
Yeah, I grew up watching The Sound of Music a little bit. Like, I think I had some struggles as a young child understanding, and so I actually have not shown The Sound of Music to my own kids because of my own struggle with this as a kid, where I was like, I don't understand why it's okay to play like Darth Vader. He's the bad guy in Star Wars, but it's not okay to play the bad guys in The Sound of Music. And
it didn't. Yeah, I mean, as a kid, that makes sense.
I mean, with your limited understanding as a kid, like that, like, oh, bad guy's a bad guy.
Yeah,
but
it's like, no, you can't pretend to be a Nazi. That's not going to work.
Not okay. Not okay. I'm going to go with Charade, which is an older film. Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn. A little bit of a comedy still, but it's also kind of like a mystery thriller. And I just think it's set in Paris. Audrey Hepburn is playing a woman whose husband has died, and it turns out he was involved in this complicated plot with, stolen money and the CIA and all these people on the hunt for it. And so it's this sort of caper thriller, and just Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, so classy, so fun. Going around Paris, you've got some peril, you've got some, fun challenges. You've got the sort of will they, won't they kind of couple there. I think it's a really fun movie that it just seems like a classy, like the kind of fun thriller you want to set in Paris.
Yeah, that's a good example of like a old school movie, but definitely you need that Paris backdrop. It just makes it a lot better to work.
It wouldn't be the same in Des Moines.
No, it wouldn't. It would lose a lot of its aura there. All right, my next one is Before Sunrise. And I think the whole Before trilogy is great. This one I really think works well in Europe. You have them on a train, they get off the train, and then they just walk around Vienna. And it's just this, if you're going to use a European city, they're just them walking around the whole time, talking and slowly falling in love. And it just is a day and a night. And you're just with these two the whole time. It's Richard Linklater, great director. I love how he did this one. I love how the dialogue feels so natural, how it's all about the body movements, the body language of it all. And it's very subtle. And yet you have this great backdrop in Vienna of just, it really adds a lot of depth, and they're able to do a lot just wandering and walking as foreigners in this city, not speaking the language and just kind of getting around and slowly falling in love. I really like this movie.
That's a great one. I feel like that is example of Americans going to Europe. I feel like the Before Sunrise and Euro Trip are two different angles on kind of the same experience.
Right.
But my fourth one, I'm going to go with a little bit of a controversial take here, but I'm going to go with Saving Private Ryan, which I mean, I think that there are a lot of war movies that you could do. And so I didn't want to go too deep into that. But I do think that Saving Private Ryan, a little bit more than most war movies, is about the Americans going to France. It's D-Day. They're arriving on the shores of D-Day, and then they're marching, or they're making their way through France on this mission. And a lot of it, I mean, they're going on this mission to rescue Private Ryan, played by Matt Damon, but they, like, as they go, they are encountering the France of this wartime. And I think that that is a part of it, as opposed to some other war movies where it's all about the fighting, or where it's all about, we just got to take that hill, or we got to do this. But here, a little, they're seeing what the towns look like. They're encountering the locals. And I think that that is a big part of the movie. And that is a big part of, the American experience in Europe. So I guess that was, and I think just a great film. So I thought that was one I included.
Yeah, amazing movie. That is, most World War II movies, it's either going to be Europe or it's going to be in Asia. But there's so many that take place in Europe that are World War II movies. But this one is, I really like it because it does interact with the native people that are there when they get there. And so that's a fun, like, to have that in the war movie, and it's not just the war. There's more of like the people that live there. So that's a good choice for the European one.
Yeah.
My last pick is actually one that is in a European language, that being German. And it is one of my favorite movies, Goodbye Lenin. I watched this movie after I came back from living in Germany, and it just really hit me. I think it's the premise of this is really interesting. It's about right before the wall falls. There's this kid and his mom. They live in East Berlin as opposed to West Berlin, and East is controlled by the Russians at the time. And the mom is really into East Berlin, is into the politics, likes what's going on there. And the son is younger and kind of into this, well, if the wall comes down, could we be part of this reuniting? And he goes, and the mom has this kind of like a heart attack or something. And she goes into a coma, and the doctor says, when she wakes up, she can't go through a lot of trauma. This might, anything crazy changes could bother her. But while she's been in this coma, the wall came down, and now the Americans are there, and everything has changed. And so you have it's this great situation for all this comedy to be played up of. He's trying to keep her in her room, keep everything the same, while the whole world is just actively changing very quickly. And it's so hard for him to keep up. Like, the pickles he gets, they're different now. How does he change the labeling out? He's got to make these fake news so he can show his mom that things are the same. And there's also a nice love story to it. There's also this reunification with him and his dad that was in West Berlin, and how that all works. So it really plays with this time period, which I think is a really interesting time period, of the time between the wall falling down, and then also this fun mother-son, like, he's trying to help her out, and a little bit of love story. I think it's got a lot going for it. That's a really fun movie that I recommend to everybody. I really liked it.
That's a great one. And it sort of launched, or was a part of, I'm not sure the timeline, but what they called the nostalgia, where, like, everyone was sort of thinking about, like, nostalgia for the East.
For the East. Yeah. I could see, this was made in, I think, the early 2000s, so it could have been 10, 15 years after the wall came down, so it's pretty fresh. It's a fun one, though.
Yeah, that is good. I haven't watched that in years, but that's a good one. Okay, my last one is it is another comedy. But this is a comedy that I think is really one of the funniest movies of all time. I recommend this to anybody, and it is A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, I haven't seen this one.
Oh, you got to see it. You got to see it. So this is Kevin Kline, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Cleese, Michael Palin, and a few other folks. But basically, there's been a heist. So this group of criminals that includes Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Kline as Americans, but working with a couple English, compatriots. They steal these diamonds, but they get disrupted, and the diamonds are hidden away. So the one guy in the group who knows where the diamonds are got arrested and is now, in jail awaiting trial. Mm-hmm. And the other people in the group want to know where the diamonds are, probably so that they can take them and run away with them. So within
Right.
this group, there's no loyalty, and the movie has a lot of fun with all this like shifting loyalty and are you loyal to anybody? Are you playing this guy off that guy and all of that? And it's just really funny like that. But then John Cleese comes in as the lawyer representing the guy who's on trial. And so then it's this whole thing of playing him to get information, but he's bound by his rules, but maybe he'll bend on his rules if he's seduced. And it's all of these just really funny situations. So, I mean, I just think it's slapstick comedy, but it's also really smart dialogue, and it all works structurally. So the humor is built into how the film is structured. And I think that it really works on that score.
Where does it take place?
It takes place in London.
I mean, if it's John Cleese, I think I have a sense of how that humor is going to play out. That sounds like it'd be a fun one with
Yeah.
that situation. Yeah.
I mean, and John Cleese plays the kind of like uptight English lawyer, and Jamie Lee Curtis is like the very street smart. She's willing to like do anything, play anyone off anything, like convince, seduce this person, convince this person that she loves them, whatever it takes. And then Kevin Kline, who, I feel like he had such a great moment, maybe in the 80s, and then has acted more, but there was a moment where he was just doing the best films, but he just comes in as like a unabashedly stupid American, and his approach is just so stereotypically dumb American, but it's really, really funny in the way that it works with everybody else. And so I think both in terms of the quality of the movie, but also the idea of Americans going to Europe, I think that one really works well.
That's a great one. I feel like we've got two good lists going on here of, depending on what mood you're in, there's a lot you could choose from.
Yeah, that's a fun list. So my five again were Euro Trip, National Lampoon's European Vacation, Charade, Saving Private Ryan, and A Fish Called Wanda.
I had Midnight in Paris, Midsommar, Sound of Music, Before Sunrise, Goodbye Lenin.
Those are some 10 great films.
Possibly the best films that take place in Europe. I haven't heard anybody argue against that, so we will say that's true as of right now.
I can't imagine anybody arguing with that. So we hope you've enjoyed this discussion of films set in Europe, some of our favorites. We'd love to hear from you, what your favorites are, and how much you agree with us. Don't tell us if you disagree. We don't want to hear that. Just tell us how much you agree with us. There we have it. Thanks for joining us for this episode of How to Make Films and Influence People. Check us out at howtomakefilmspodcast.com, and we'll see you next time.